Okay, I'm still checking. Probably
We are
the live.
live. We are
You're
live right
live.
now.
All right, that's good. Yes, there are people on being hyped. So I am still refreshing to see if we actually are live or not.
Yes, we are. We are. I can see it.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Okay,
Yes.
we are on live.
Okay.
We are
So
on
there were
live.
some minor technical difficulties, but we got over it. So
Nice.
since it's 11, we'll get started. So hi everyone. Welcome to Monash Open Day and welcome to Monash Association of Coding's event, Make a Calculator in Python. My name is Anna and I'm here with JC and we are events officers for Monash Association of Coding, which we call MAC for short. I'm in my third year of software engineering and arts, and JC is in her second year of computer science and commerce. So to start off with, we'll do a quick intro of MAC. So MAC is a coding club that focuses on imparting invaluable technical skills and industry relevant experience to students. Our ultimate goal is to foster a programming culture here at Monash and provide a collaborative setting for students to learn from each other as well as as well as develop their technical skills through events and workshops like this one. And what sets us apart is that when we do what we do at the end of the day, we'll produce a result that will add value to students. So hopefully, if you do choose to go to Monash, we'll see some of you at our future events and that you will join MAC. So for this event, please check the description box below for all the important links. And if you have any questions, feel free to message in the live chat, which will have our MAC members answering your questions as soon as possible. So without further ado, let us jump into the content for today. So as it is linked in the description, we will be coding on REPL today. Which when you open it up, it looks like this. And what you want to do is that you press start coding, and you press Python as your language because that is the language we'll be coding in today. And create REPL, and you should be able to get something to do your coding in and also be able to run your program as well. So we'll start off with by demonstrating the full program that we'll be making today. So I already have the source code is in the notes, the first part of the notes. So this is all the code that we'll be writing today. And what it does is when you copy and paste that, or you can copy and paste that, or later on we'll be writing it step by step as well. If you put that in REPL and you press run, you will be able to see the program operation on the right hand side. So the program runs like this. You can select your operation that you want to do. So say I want to add two numbers together, and then you can enter your number that you want to add. So say 20, and your second number can be like 1,234, and it will add it together and print the result here. And the way that we made the program work is that it will keep running and running until you stop it. So the calculator would run, when you run the calculator, it will keep running until you want to not run it anymore, and you can stop it like that. So let me move this back over here and move this back up to the top. And yeah, so that's what we'll be writing today. And don't worry if this code doesn't make sense at the moment because we'll be going through it step by step throughout the whole event. Now, I will be passing on to JC, who will be talking about how to print things in Python. So when you saw before how you have all these things printed out here, JC will be going through how you can do that.
Okay, let's go. So I can share my screen now. So
Oh
it's
yes.
just to see it's easier for you guys to kind of have a understanding of what we're doing. All right. So for printing, it's a really simple statement on how we're going to
JC,
let the
your screen hasn't been shared yet.
yeah. It's all right. I know that.
Okay.
So I'm just going to share my screen right now. If anyone can see my very empty screens, yeah. So the point that we want to print from this is which we want to tell the computer is that hey, this is the line of string, like a line of letters that we want you to simply print. So the command is also self-explanatory for high-level languages like Python. So it's just print. Then you're going to have anything you want to print, say hello world, for example. Not word, but hello world. So when we tap run, going to print out hello world, as we can see at this side. Yeah. So now that we want to design our own calculator, let's say we want to have a calculator with 4 options. So first we're going to start introducing our calculator. Say, hello, I'm the calculator. So that's the first line you might want to print. Then second line, we're going to print out all the options. So each of the options we print on each line. So let's start with this first option 1 being add. And then we're going to start with option 2. So say option 2 being subtraction. So what I want you guys to all do right now as a matter of practice, to say print the next 2 lines with the next 2 options that you want on your calculator. So print the third option being multiplication, and print the fourth option being division. So have a try of doing that yourself at the moment, and we'll see if you guys got it correct or not. Let's go. So I'm just going to stop sharing screen right now, and Anna's going to pop up her screen later on after like 1 minute and check if you guys already settled. If there's any questions happening, you guys can always pop down into the chat. Then we're going to answer, and all the math members going to answer your concern.
Yes. So yeah, which adding on to what JC said, if you're ever stuck, you can come back to the link to the notes in as linked in the description, and hopefully that will help you out there. Yep. So what we do, as JC mentioned, we want to print it out so that the calculator prints all these operations that the user can do.
Yes.
And then, yes, let them know what they can do with your calculator.
So it's pretty self-explanatory. So you just like write print and the set of numbers, letters, keywords to print. You can say, so it's, rather than just select operation, you can say, what do you want me to do? Or what cool things you want me to do? Kind of change it all around. You don't need to try to copy. All we did is I was just like a very, very basic and lame calculator. You can always make it for a better decorations or something. Yeah. So try to do that. And we're just going to come back at 11:09 to continue with our next part, which is
Functions.
yes.
So
I'm trying to make a drum roll.
Yes. No, in terms of how you can access these notes, there is a link in the description under, so you can see access the notes and code snippets here, and there's a link that you can copy and paste. So sorry that it's not an actual link that you can click on, but you should be able to access it to that link.
Yeah. So there's a question say, how often does Mac hold events? Anna, do you want to answer this?
So our events are held throughout the semester. At usually we try to aim for 1 event per week. But once you do join MAC and once you do come to Monash, we will have we would release frequent social media posts letting you know when our events are, so you will not miss anything.
Yeah, so basically our event is pretty diverse anyway. So if there's anything that you want to kind of like catch on, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube as well as on our Facebook, because most of our social medias are on Facebook. And you're going to get more updated with the events, time, date, and even the content. So
Yeah.
it will spread out throughout a lot of small sections in IT, including computer science, UX, UI design, and even code interview helping, sort of things like that. So you're welcome to subscribe us and follow us on Facebook and see that all of the events we're having, it's like really dynamic at this time, even though it's COVID-19. But
yeah. So now we'll move on. Hopefully you've had enough time to do the print statements, but we'll move on to what functions in Python and what they are. So functions in coding or in Python are basically like functions that you are probably familiar with when you do in maths. So for example, I put here function of x equals x plus 1. So f of x is a function that takes in an input and gives you an output. So that's what a function in Python does. So it would take an input, and then you would have some code inside the function that would do something with the input, and then it would usually give you an output as well. So in Python, instead of writing like f of x equals something something something, you would actually you would use def to like define the function, and then you put a space and you would write your function name. So it doesn't have to be f of x. Just like in maths, you can call it anything. It can be sine, cosine, and like, but in Python you can actually name the function anything you want. So this could be like find x, and then that's possible as a function name as well. So that's the function name, and then in brackets you would put your input, and then you would have put a colon and do your whatever you want to do inside the function here. So that's what we'll be doing next in our code to write the functions that will do the addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. And then hopefully, and then JC will be explaining that in just a little bit. But before we do that, I just wanted to quickly explain what I have written here, which is the difference between printing and returning statements. So before we just did print, which means that the statements appear in the output here. But then when you return something from a function, like for example here, we return x plus 1, which means that in this function, find, or as we call it f for simplicity. So in this function f, we will return x plus 1, which is the output of the function. Returning from the function doesn't automatically print it to the output. So it just usually you give it back to whatever code that was using the function before, and then that will continue on. And so it's not returning doesn't necessarily print it into the terminal, whereas print will definitely print it into the output. So that's the basic difference between printing and returning. And here are some more notes on it if you are confused, and feel free to also ask in the chat. Now I'm going to pass on to JC, who will talk about the code, the function code that actually appears in our calculator program.
All right, lovely, Anna. So for this function, it's going to be real short, as you guys can see. So, Anna, do you want me to share screen?
Sure.
Okay, let's get some coding started, man. So after this, I hope you guys all getting all your printing menu done, because that's a really important step to describe all the functions from your calculator to a human user. So now that we're going to continue with doing a function. So whenever you start a function in maths, you can see that you start a function with an fx, but then in here you start with a def, which is what a function is. So you're going to start with def, which is the short form for define. So for example, you want a function for addition. So you're going to say, this is a function for addition. So what these two dudes are doing here is signifying the two numbers that are going to intake into your function. So now, the next line is really easy. It's just purely return x plus y. So as you can say that Anna's already said that the difference between print and return is that return doesn't need to print out the result, whereas the print is going to visualize the actual result to the human user. So for example, let me just run def 5 plus 6. So we all already know that the addition between 5 plus 6, sorry, I think
yes,
add.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you want to call the function with the function name, not with def.
Yeah, that's my fault, guys. So if you can see that if we only run this, see, they did not print out the result of the 5 and 6. But then if we said we have to print out this function, because if this function just returning the values, then we can see then it prints out the final result, because we are finally using print to print out the returned result. Yeah. So from what we have here, we have 4 functions to make doing. So we're just going to make each of them pretty easy, pretty subtle. So the next one we're going to be, ooh, what is this? Gonna have to stop it. Wow, I'm having technical difficulties. So Anna,
Yeah.
right now she's going to take over my screen because my screen kind of froze for some reason.
It's okay. It might be
And
like an
she's going
internet
to,
activity.
yeah, she's going to help you guys assist on the future functions.
Yes, so if you're ever stuck, we do have the complete code on our notes, but it would be better for memory and better for practice to write it out one by one. So as JC was saying, we already looked at the add function. So, let's go here. Before we had, so def, and then your function name. So before we looked at the add, so if you wanted to write a subtract function, for subtraction, so you can call it subtract, or you can even call it minus. you can call it anything you want, but naming it something easy to read will make it easier for you to understand as well. So subtract, you want to subtract two numbers, x and y, and you have, and then, so what do you want to do when you subtract a number? Obviously, you want to subtract the number. And how you do these sort of operations in Python, I have written here. So if you want to subtract two numbers, you use the minus symbol. So I'm going to subtract y from x. So I'm going to do x minus y, like that. And then you don't just end here, because you need to do something with this output. So you can't just leave it like that, because that's the wrong, that's not how you write. You need to do something with it, because that's the point of the program, right? So what you want to do is, in this case, you want to return it, because you want to pass it back to the main program, which will be coming back and running later, to print out the result. Yes.
Yeah, so just some tips up as well, because when you guys type the name like for these functions like addition, subtraction, and multiplication, your website will suggest like these similar names, but then that is only because the website, like this replica, has already been like, yeah, you can see that they suggested you the subtract one, but it doesn't mean that that's your function name. That's just simply like it can be like the inbuilt function that is already inside the website, but then you can still overwrite it using your own name. We don't mind. So there's another question from Kimberly Chin. Will this video be accessible as a recording after the live stream? I think yes, because we're doing on a Facebook and it's going to save our footprints. So you can always watch it every time, and we also can give you the notes on our page as well. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure live streams are automatically recorded.
yeah,
So it
yeah,
should be
yeah.
good. Okay, so we can give you until what, like one more minute to
2 more
to
minutes.
complete
Two
your
minutes?
functions. So
Yeah.
yeah, so in terms of where to write them, you can just, before we wrote the print statements at the very top, so you can just write that underneath it, and we will we'll
Yeah.
write that underneath it, and we will format it properly all at the end. Yes.
So right now, what we're trying to do is to help you building your chunks of code. And then the last very important bit is for you to connect all of them into a specific program and let it run by itself. Yeah. So don't be scared if your code doesn't make sense right now, because we're chopping it into very small pieces.
Yes. So just a
So you
preview
guys
of the
gonna
next part while we finish off. I'll be talking about how we're going to take the input. So yes, I think we should be good to go, hopefully. And make sure to write any questions you have in the chat, and we should be good. So next part, I'll be talking about how to take user input and then convert it to a number. So what that means is, remember when we ran the program, there was, I'm just gonna move this up as well. Sorry, that move this on the screen. But here, when you run the program, there's like an option for the user to enter their choice. So, for example, I can enter like a 2 here, and then it will keep running. It would then keep running. So we're gonna have to do that implement it inside the code somehow. And the way we do that is that there is an inbuilt input function in Python that when you use that function, it would get user input. So the syntax, or the way you write it out, is that you would have input. I'll just demonstrate here. Input, and then you can just use it like that, or you can put in the prompt that you want to give to the user inside this inside quotation marks inside between the two brackets of the input. So for example, here we have select operation, and you can and then so this it will be printed out automatically as the prompt for the user when they're inputting the input. So yes, you can do that. And then the reason why we need to convert it into a number. So the way that you convert into a number is using the input, or another inbuilt function called float, and you put that around the whole input function. And the reason for that is because when you take user input, it's in the format of something called a string, which is like a text. You could think of it as. So it's not actually a number. So it's taking whatever number that you input into the into this function as the text for number 2. So not actually like a number 2. So that's why we need to first convert it into a number before it can be used later on. And then finally, so taking the user input, using this prompt, converting it to a number, and then finally what we need to do with that input is that we need to store it somewhere because we want to be able to use it later. Because and then we store it here in choice because these are called variables, which you can name anything you want. Here we've just named this particular variable choice, which means kind of just tells us that it's a choice from the user of what they want to do. And then after that, you can then use choice, which has stored whatever the user has inputted later on in the code. And that is a similar case for number 1 and number 2, which is the numbers that they want to add or subtract or multiply, divide with each other. Yes, so that is how you do that.
Yep, so you guys are going to have 1 minute to just gonna either copy this code down or try to code yourself. But the idea behind input and float is just to interact with the users like us. Like we are the users, and then that's how the computer tries to interact and get the information that we want from ourselves. So I'm just going to have until 11:23. Then we're just going to hop down into one of the very, very important part of this code is the if else function. Like not really function, more like statement, is it? Statement, proposition. That's more important. Yeah. So if we are being talking too fast or something, then our Mac members are also summarizing what we've been talking regarding the functions like input, float. So you guys can always hop onto the chat function and have a look. So, okay, bam, 11:23. So let's start on the if else one. So in understanding the if else, we're going to have you have a read of these first, because these three main things are different: if, elif, and else. Anna, can you scroll down to the chart?
Do you want to share your screen?
Okay, yeah, I can do that as well. So I am going to show my, yeah, okay, here. All right. So you can all see my pages. And what I want you all to see is look at this flowchart. This flowchart definitely defines a lot about how the computer thinks. So when it says if, it's going to bring down to two risk scenario. It's either being true, so that part of if code is being executed, or it's being false, which can be like either an else function being executed or an elif function being executed. But still, this is how it works. And the difference is, as you see, because if the elif is one part, like one small minor part of the if branch, so the elif only being used after if. So this is being said like if you are a year 11. So if you're a year 11, but that's true, so we're just going to go this flow and on to the continuing thing. But then if you're not year 11, which means making this statement false, then my second statement is, so else if you're year 12. So I'm like trying to going down to see what year you're in. So if it's true, yay, you're year 12. But if it's false, yay, you're neither. So basically that's how we are using if, elif, and else. Because this is a bit more, like people will consider this as a common sense thing. But in order for you to differentiate between if and elif, that's really important into your code because it just makes your code cleaner, the flow is better, and your computer can actually follow what you think it is following. So that is all basically for my theoretical phase. And Anna, you're going to explain the next phase. So how we're going to use this flow onto our code.
Yes.
Thank you, Anna. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. You can start now.
Yeah. So
There we
as
go.
JC was saying, if else is used to make a decision between two or multiple different statements. So if the if else part that we'll be using in our program is given here. So this is the code that we wrote just before for taking the user input, but I'm keeping it here so that you can see how we use these variables or like the things that we stored our input in the code that a bit later on. So we need to check. So if when the user selects the operation here, we need to check which operation they selected in order to be able to call the right function or use the right function to be able to give them the result that they want from the calculator. So what we want to do is that we want to check which operation they chose. So if if they chose 1, so if choice is equal to 1, and here's a little thing from Python. So if you want to compare two things in Python, whether they're equal or not, you have to use the double equal sign, because as you saw, we saw that we use the equal sign to store things into variables. So that's why we use double equal sign to compare. So now here we're comparing if the choice they chose was 1. So I'm just going to correct our syntax. So
There we go.
we have, before we converted the choice into a number, but then now we're
Yes.
comparing it to strings. So when you have like quotation marks around things, in Python it means they're strings. But don't worry too much if you're like these strings, numbers, that's confusing right now. It is just, you will come to learn about that when you practice a little bit more. So there's just there's
Yeah.
different types
It's just different
in
types of
coding.
data that your computer consider. There's no big fuss about that. So just gonna check the consistency of your data,
Yeah.
then you'll be fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
so
Continue
don't
on.
worry too much about that right now. So essentially what we're doing is just checking whether the choice that the user inputted is equal to 1. And if it is, then we are going to do what JC demonstrated before. We're going to print the summation of that number. So the summation of that number we can do by using the function that we wrote before called add, which should be in your code a bit above this whole part, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll print that out into the result, into the output. But if their choice is not 1, what if their choice is not 1, then there is their choice 2. That's what this elif means. So else, if their choice is 2, then we want to do the subtraction. And then similarly, else, if their choice is 3, then we will print their multiplication. And then if their choice is 4, then we'll print the division. Otherwise, so they entered something that was invalid, so like not 1, 2, 3, or 4, then we want to print an invalid, like in a warning or an error saying that they should put their selection within 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Mm-hmm. So basically, else if is just meaning that if the main function is false, okay, there's another branch. You still need to go through that branch, and there's nothing much about that. So yeah, so I'm just gonna give you guys 1 minute to try to fast typing, but not. Don't worry if you can't get the. We will publish the entire note for you guys. So just gonna have a go with those if and elif and the printing and the return, because the way you think of return is you write a function, the computer takes all the input, then you calculate, and then they return the result. It means the computer already has the result, but it doesn't give out to us yet. So we need to use print so that the computer prints it out to human users. Okay, so a question from George is, does the spaces in Python coding matter? I say yes.
Yes, it definitely does.
The
Well, for the most part,
in
it does, because so spaces between your it's called variable assignment, or like when you store things in variables, it doesn't really matter. So this will still work, but obviously it doesn't look as good. So and doesn't look as clear. So that's why you normally for good practices you would put spaces, but the spaces that matter the most are these spaces called indents, because in Python there's the way that you indicate to the computer what statements you want to execute after your if condition. You have to do that by indenting. So for example, if I put the print without the space here, then the computer wouldn't know that this is a statement it needs to execute if choice is equal to 1. So you want to indent this and put it underneath the part that says that has your condition. So then it will know that if this condition is true, it will then go in execute the indented statement. Otherwise, it's going to go into like the non-indented next choice and keep checking. That's why
yeah.
the spaces are most important in this situation. But and also in the situation where in this case, as you can see, if I combine the if and the choice, then it's not like it won't recognize this if, because obviously like it's just recognizing this whole word. That's why the space between like these are called I think they're called
Yeah, inbuilt operations.
inbuilt
Yeah.
operations. Yeah, they the space between those are also important, but the spaces here are not as important.
So pretty much the space is for you for the computer to recognize, oh, if what you're trying to say is either a variable name, a command, or an operations, or a subpart of an operation. Because like even for us, we have to like understand which part is being executed after we've done the other part. So that's how we're going to set that to our computer using our spaces, basically. So I'm just gonna give you guys another 1 extra minute. Then we're gonna jump into another huge chunk, which is the for loops and the while loops. So it sounds really interesting. Yeah, it's like what is it for? What's this while? But you guys going to quickly see the difference in the next 1 minute. So right now, just hop your code on, finish up what you're doing, and ready for one of the most important thing that you're going to use. This thing everyone is going to use like every single time they're coding, like all the time through the uni, because it's so crucial. This is one of the crucial part that you're going to have to learn.
Meanwhile, I'm gonna stop sharing, and then JC can
Oh,
share your screen
it's mine.
for
Nice.
loops.
Lovely. So I'm just going to start my for loops. Hmm. So as anyone can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your
Say
screen.
lovely, lovely. So let's get into start with, well, our minute's done. So what is a loop? So in terms of like definitions, you know what a loop is. It's like unstopping circle lines kind of thing or thing. But now that in our for loops in a Python, which is in a computer, this is our visualization of what a loop is. So first of all, when you enter a for loop, you see variable initialization. So it's basically we doing the user input. Are we having all the variable names, all the variables values going on? And then we come into termination condition. So if like for something something. So for example, for this code, for x in range of 5. So our termination condition is for x to be within, to be more than range 5, that it will terminate because it's not in a range 5 anymore. So if x is not range in range 5, like range 5 here is from 0 to 5. One of the most interesting about Python coding is that it starts with the 0. It starts with number 0 being the first number and not 1. So remember that. And so if x is not larger than 5, which is not beyond range 5, they will do the statements inside the loop. So this is the statement inside the loop. So as we can see, all the indentation, because it's just going to say to the computer, say, this is the part we want you to do after the if is being satisfied, like the for loop is being satisfied. And it keeps on incrementing, means that it keeps on going back to this to check the condition. And if the condition is satisfied, then they'll keep printing, then they'll keep going back. That's how the loop goes. And then when it starts reaching into a number beyond 5, which is beyond range 5, then the last incrementation will go to this condition, check the condition again for x. Okay, we see that it's wrong. We're going to go to false. And we're going to go outside the loop. So Anna, would you like to continue with the while loop and to
Yes.
help everyone understand what's the difference between while loop and for loop and how people would use them in different scenarios?
Yes, so as JC mentioned before, loops in programming are when you want to repeat a certain block of code or a certain line of code multiple times. So the difference, so for loops, as you can sort of see from the diagram and also from the code here, you can, when you use a for loop, you know exactly how many times you want to repeat a certain thing. So for this line of code, if you are going to repeat 5 times this statement inside here. So that's why you're going to print x 5 times. And then in terms of what x is in this case, this is a little bit complicated, a little more advanced, but you can just remember for now that if if you're using for x in range 5, you're printing the numbers from 0 to 4. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 numbers. And you're going to print all those numbers one by one when this code is executing. But don't worry too much about understanding this at this point in time, because we'll have the code snippet for you, and when you do more programming into the future, it would make more sense to you. But for now, just remember that for loops do certain things a set number of times. Whereas while loops, which is what I'm going to go through right now, are those that you don't know how many times exactly that you want to run a certain thing, but you do know that you want to run it until a certain condition is false. So I have a example here. So say you have a variable named counter, and then you initially counter was say 0. Initially it was 0, and you're going to keep executing this while loop, keep running around and around, doing the same things as many times as you need until the counter reaches a value of 3. So it seems pretty confusing right now, I guess. Why? Because you know that you wanted to do it up until 3, so why can't you just use a for loop? But most of the times when you do use a while loop is when you don't know for sure. So here is just a very basic example. That's why, and that we use to demonstrate how you would write a while loop in Python. But normally you would use
Exactly.
it if you don't know how many times you want to do something.
Because usually for for loops, the X will iterate itself into like adding one after each trial. Whereas in a while loop, sometimes you're not going by one step. You're going to sometimes you're going to go for like double stepping, triple stepping, even like quadratic stepping kind of thing. So that function, like the counter equals counter plus one, sometimes it doesn't change like that. It can be counter equals counter multiply with two, or counter multiply with three. So for while loop, the step is being more flexible. So that's why the more flexible the step is, and then the more unpredictable the number of steps we require to reach to our number, because it can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah. So just to run the while loop that we just wrote before. So as you can see, when we ran it, it printed inside loop 3 times because it we said while counter was less than 3, we're going to print it and then print inside loop, and then we're going to increment or add 1 to the counter. And then that's why it went around until we had counter was added until it was 3, and then it stopped. So that's the basic operation of a loop. So we'll do something until a certain condition is met. And then in terms of why we need to, and then in terms of our program, what we want to do with loops here is that when we saw in our first initial demonstration, we want to keep running the program until the user presses stop at the top here. And then because we don't know how many times the user is going to run the program, they'll run it as many times as they want. So then we can't use a for loop because we don't actually know how many times. We don't know how many times to run the program until we stop. We want to leave that up to the user. That's why we're using a while loop. And then in terms of our condition, so the condition that we want to keep running the loop for until it is false, we don't really have one because we just really want to let it run until the user presses stop. So that's why we use something called a boolean, or like a true or false value in Python, to sort of set up our while loop. So we said while true, which means like so because the condition, we said it will keep running until the condition is false, but because we used true already, like the condition is never going to be false. And that's what we want, because we want to keep running it forever and ever until the user literally presses stop on their keyboard. That's why we use true here. While true, we want to do everything that we wrote beforehand, like taking the user input and then adding the numbers and printing out the result. And when we want to keep doing that, that's why we put that indented underneath our while loop, because that's what we want to do while the while loop is running. So the way that you would write this on your code, so you would write the while condition above what you have written so far, above this part, which hopefully you have on your page, and then you would highlight this whole part and press tab, and then it would like indent it
Shift,
automatically for
yeah.
you, and it would run through that program.
Yeah. So basically, Anna just explained all the codes to you using your while loop. because right now we don't even know how many times the user want to use a calculator, right? But guys can always have a think, how can we replace true into a condition that stops the calculator? If you guys want to stop it using not the stop button, but a different key, try to think how we're going to use that, because all you need to do is just replacing the true letter, if I'm not wrong.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. So
basically.
yeah, I will. Let's give you. I'll give you some maybe 2 minutes to. Oh yes, 2 minutes to complete your this part of the code, and then we will see if you have any questions. We will be answering that and also showing you how what your program should look like at the
Yep.
end. But we that for reference, that's also at the very top of the notes.
So it's just gonna give you 2 minutes. Well, now it's like 1 minute because it's like 11:42. Gonna refurbish all the code, all your codings, make it pretty, make it like fancy something. Like people enjoy having fancy codes and fancy printing as well. But we just going to wrap up after this 1 minute. All we're going to review what we have done today, and we're going to review what's the overall code's going to look like, and finally we're going to answer all your concerns, all your questions, and all your curiosity about coding and about Mac, the coders,
And
basically.
Monash in general.
Yeah,
Yes.
Monash in the eyes of coders. We're going to answer that. So yeah,
Yeah.
so 1 more minute, guys, and it's gonna be a neat
Yes.
wrapped up. So we're gonna wait until 11:44. Yeah,
N- um,
43 is fine as well
43 is
because it's 43
fine.
now.
Let
Yeah.
me refresh. Actually, I shouldn't refresh because it would restart everything. But
Nah, it
essentially,
doesn't. It doesn't.
okay, yeah, because
Yeah, it
the
doesn't.
terminal stopped running. But we will. So essentially, we are almost about. We are pretty much done with our calculator program. Uh, so what it should look like is when this loads.
Yeah, the this boots slow. Mine's like boot
Let
slows
me
as
show you the
well.
code at the top. That will be easier. So what
Yeah, let's go.
essentially what you want to have, still loading, but if you essentially what you want to have is this program. So we want to we did the printing first, and then we went into functions, and then we did the while loop, and then we did like the if else and taking user input as well, and then we put the while loop around. So then that's all together. Your program should look like what we demonstrated at the very start, and hopefully what the code, like the actual code behind it, does makes more sense to you right after our explanations. Yes, in the and then hopefully you guys also have the working running program. And if you
Yep.
have any questions and or something that we didn't explain clearly enough, please do chuck it in the live chat, and then we'll be looking at that and answering you.
Yeah. So
Otherwise,
basically, yeah.
in the meantime, in the meantime, we can demonstrate how you would use the while loop. So instead of having while true, as JC mentioned before, we can demonstrate how to. So say you wanted to run the program only once, and then, actually not the only once. Let's say we run it 5 times, and then we're going to stop it instead of letting it run forever. How would we do that? So let me copy the keyboard, copy to the clipboard, and put this here.
Nice.
So I want to
All
run.
right.
Oh yes, one thing to you might be wondering what these statements here are. So these statements are what you call comments in code. So they don't do anything. They're just there for people who want to understand the code to be able to understand it. So we're letting the programmer know what this part of the code does. So is printing the options is what this part of the code does.
Yeah, it's basically us taking notes, but not in a notebook, but within our codes. Yeah, easy to understand.
So what if we wanted to do? I want to run the program only only 5 times. And we know for sure it is 5 times. So we would use a for loop because we know 100% that it's going to be, we want to only run it 5 times. So remembering our syntax from the for loop at the very bottom here. Sorry, I'm looking at it here. So we want to run it for 5 times. So we will do exactly this line of code, but put that instead of the while loop, because this is what's controlling how many times it's running, the while condition. But now we want to make that a for loop. So say for x, let's say for x in range 5. And then that would run in this, and they will run this 5 times. And then you might be wondering, you might be wondering why do I like use x here? Can it be like why does it have to be x? It actually doesn't have to be x. It can be anything you want to name it. So this is just another variable name. But what's more important is that the range 5, because the range 5 means that it will run for 5 times. So hopefully, if I run this, it would only run for 5 times.
Yeah, so basically in the loop, you don't like sometimes like for some of the loops that it's only used for the sake of iteration, you don't need to care about the variables inside because it's just helping the computer to like count the number of times, yeah. But for some other cases, it might be important, but then on this case, the thing that you need to focus on is the termination condition, which is the range 5. Yes. So see how many times it stops.
So yeah, it has stopped now, but it has run for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times exactly like we wanted it to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you did that.
So I think we're gonna wrap up
within
the next 2 minutes, and we're gonna have Q&A session. It's for you guys to ask all the questions you need during this open day. So you can wrap up this coding, Anna.
Yes. So essentially, we made a calculator today. I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about Python and how to code, how to write functions, how to print out statements, how to use loops, and how to use the if-else blocks. And then hopefully when you do join, if you do come to Monash, that you join Mac and come to more events like this one to learn more about coding and about technical skills in general if you're interested in that. And thank you very much for joining us today. If you have any questions, we are basically open Q&A right now. So if you have any questions, you can add it into the live chat, and we will answer them.
Try to answer. Nice. Okay, so Monash Information Technologies, shout out to us saying, well done, Mac, great workshop. And if you love coding, make sure to join Mac. Thank you, Monash IT, for featuring and complimenting us on our session. We would love everyone to join us next year because we're going to have recruitment soon for next semester. But yeah, always.
Thank you.
So a lot of people say thank you. Yep. We appreciate you guys comes as well and enjoy our session. All good, Kellen. So Christian James asked, do I need prior coding experience if I wanted to join Mac? Any answering?
You don't need any coding experience to join Mac. So we have a different events targeted at different levels. So for example, this event today was targeted at complete beginners. So for people who have never coded before and just interested in programming, wants to learn more. So you just need an interest in programming to join us.
So you can just need to have a coding passion, basically, because for all of the events, we're going to specify like what do we require from the program. Like we can say what kind of prior knowledge we require, so that you have enough time to have a research before that and not coming to a workshop being absolute freaked out. What do you want to, not knowing what to do.
Yes, we have a question saying, how do I keep up with Mac news? So JC, would you like to answer that?
Okay, so as I always been mentioning, and I'm going to mention again, Facebook and YouTube are one of our strongest social media, and Instagram as well. That's our main social media platforms, and we're going to functions in there and organize things in there. So make sure to subscribe to us, following us on the Facebook pages, Instagram, and finally YouTube, so you can get all up to date with Mac news. You can also subscribe to Mac newsletters every week. And for all the information, you can totally contact Mac in our Facebook page.
Yes.
Okay, so another question. What kind of events does Mac do? Is it similar to this?
Yeah, so Mac does the events that we run are very technical focused and focused on improving technical skills and coding skills and technical knowledge in general, and proving and on and those skills are really important when you want to get into the technical industry. So that's the events that we run are very similar to this one, and they hope to help students improve on their technical knowledge and so sometimes we run workshops where we teach a certain skill, and sometimes we also run collaborative sessions where we all learn together.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Anna. So basically, Mac is a very student-friendly environment. We all the same boat. We all want to learn. We all want to contribute to each other. So our event will be based on that concept. So it's either us helping you guys out, or even you guys going to bring us some inspiration and understanding about coding, because we don't know that much about coding either. So there's a question: can I come to future events if I'm in year 12? I think it's like everyone's friendly.
Yes,
Doesn't
so
mean,
we
yeah.
are our events are mostly for people at Monash, but we will in the future we would likely have a lot more live streamed YouTube events like this one where anyone's free to join.
Okay, cool.
Yes, but can't
Yes.
wait. If you do come to Monash, then you are obviously feel free to join our events next year.
Yeah. So we're just representing Monash community of coders, but you can always join when in your year 12, year 11, you're doing VC algorithms. You're free to, like, you're more than welcome to join, because we love to discuss concepts, understanding, knowledge in IT, in coding in general, and we would love to be helpful or being understanding, learning new things as well. So last question, last two questions. I think last one. What's your favorite part of Mac? Wow, that's a very personal question. Let's go, Anna. Let's
Oh my
tell them some
gosh.
stories. Let's
I
go.
like everything about Mac. Literally, joining Mac has been the best decision I made coming to uni because it's a very cool community of everyone, of a lot of people who are very interested in software, in technical skills. That's something that I'm also really passionate about. So it's an amazing community to be a part of.
Yeah, personally, having the same experience, because joining Mac helps me more job ready in a sense. So it's going to give you all the tips in industrial of technology, as well as understanding the concept clearer, because sometimes self-learning and learning from your friends are the best solution, like the best tips you got to go for, because they're going to have the same understanding as you, they're going to learn the same thing as you, but then they understand, like the way of their understanding is more interesting, more technical, and you can always learn from other people. So yeah, we can't wait to see everyone here coming to like Monash and joining us next year, next semester, and going to have all you got on board, having all these events going. So check out on our Facebook right now, because for the next few weeks we're gonna have a bunch of events going on.
Yes, um, just to say right now, normally when it's in-person events, they are only for students that go to Monash. But because everything's online right now, it is actually okay for you to come and join any of our events as long as so you can access the Zoom links and everything on Facebook, and so they're open to anyone since they're online right now.
So as long as you
Yes, so
love
welcome,
coding, you're
welcome.
welcome. Yeah. So as long as you love coding, you are welcome here. We're all the same community.
Yes, so
So
everyone is welcome since all our events are online. So whether you're in year 7 or year 10 or year 12 or whatever year level you're in, you're welcome to come and join.
okay, so there's two questions. I think one of the questions we answered already. Can you join Mac even if you're year 10? I'd say
Yes,
yes.
we just
If you're just passionate about coding, if you just love understanding about what the industries are doing with the coding, feel free to go. Feel free to go, because we are here to help with your curiosity for IT.
So next
And then
year, there's someone who will be in first year. How do they get involved and volunteer at events like this, JC?
okay, so I think we always have recruitment for every semester, and each of the recruitment we're going to have volunteers assisting with our events, or you can sign up to be one of our officer, which is a very helpful, like interesting way to help out. Because being an events officer myself, it's not being just a like a bland job doing like very little jobs, that kind of thing. Because when you do like volunteering in like different events, you're gonna have a feeling that you're not contributing enough. Whereas in Mac, they just throw you within the deep zone. Like you can explore your like ability outside of your comfort zone every single time there's a thing that you can help. So feel free to be initiative. Feel free to contact Mac through Facebook pages, Instagram, that we can easily respond to your messages, easily respond to your questions, and we're gonna get to you pretty early. Like we're like so responsive. Like what?
Yes, I forgot one more social media that we are on. We are also on Discord. So if you have,
Oh,
that's where we that's where we answer. So if you have any questions related to uni, related to computer science, related to coding, or related to life in general, any fun things, we can also add. We
if
also
you,
have a Discord where
yeah,
we can join.
you
Yes,
guys can also meet us if you guys have like a mental crisis during learning in IT as well. We can share this with you. It's all right, man.
yes. So I think we will wrap up now because I think there are more events happening throughout Open Day. So make sure you check out the Monash Open Day website, and we hope to see you back as a future student in the future.
Nice. Good session, guys. So we're just gonna stop our live stream in like closing this thing, Anna.
Yes. So
Okay.
yes, we will. We hope you really enjoyed the session today and learned a lot about Python, learned a lot about Mac, and also thank you for joining us. And we will see you guys again at our next event.
Okay, let's